What's up? I'm B, and welcome to my living room. I felt like I needed to switch it up today. It's been a week. I filmed an entire video on faith deconstruction and another YouTuber who is currently going through that deconstruction of her faith before our very eyes, and I think it is an incredibly fascinating topic. And then when I went to edit it, there was no sound. There was just none. There was no sound. So I had to kind of scrap that. I've been thinking about re-recording or possibly doing a live stream to have more of a conversation style format to that. So if that's a video that you are interested in and you want to see it come up on my channel or you want to see it as a live stream, let me know in the comments down below. But that was an ordeal. I was devastated. There are additionally a million other things going on in the background of my life right now, but I figured while I'm sorting those out and while we're figuring out what to do about the deconstruction of faith video, I would do a reaction because there's a YouTuber who you might know by the name of Classically Abby, and I've spoken about her before on my channel. Other than that, she's not particularly on my radar, but a few days ago, I got recommended a video from her titled "Women Are Powerful as Hell, debunking the feminist lie." And I thought, what a title, what a character for this video to come from. Let's just take a look at it. Before we do get into reacting to that video though, I do want to kind of make a statement towards Classically Abby. Like I said earlier, she is not a YouTuber that I tend to keep up with, so when I saw this, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's have some fun and hear what she has to say about this. But I went to her channel and I saw that just a few videos ago, she did post about having a miscarriage, and I didn't watch the video, but man, God, my heart just definitely goes out to her in this season of life, in dealing with that and everything that comes after it. And I do truly, even though I'm probably going to critique the things in this video, I do send her love in that. And like I said, I do hope that she is doing okay, that she is feeling peace, that she is surrounded by love and people to help her get through that. With that being said, if that was her most recent video, I probably would not be doing this reaction, but it was a few videos ago. She's posted a few videos in the interim, and then even after this one, she's continued posting, so I feel like it's possible that this was a while back, or she's done some processing already to get through it, and she's back at work, she's posting. As always with all of my video critiques, it's not about sending hate towards any person, it's just kind of talking about ideas and giving perspectives on new things, so it's more so about having a conversation than tearing somebody down. Let's get into the reaction. I do have a glass of wine with me. I really do enjoy wine, although I don't partake too frequently because it's like one glass gets me good, so I tend to limit the amount of wine that I drink. But I made Cajun pumpkin Alfredo pasta this past week, and it called for 1 tablespoon of wine. So of course, I had to buy a bottle of Pinot Grigio. I had to open it, had to get that tablespoon, and I'm not gonna let it go to waste. So cheers. Let's watch this video.
Hello, Classic Crew, and welcome to today's video, where we're going to be talking about what feminists won't tell you.
I guess before we even get into this, I'll give a little preface on my attitude towards feminism. I don't know if it's internalized misogyny or quite what, but I do kind of tend to have an aversion to the term feminism. I guess just because there are so many interpretations and offshoots of it, I feel like maybe I'll be perceived in a negative way, especially because there are radical feminists or trans exclusionary radical feminists. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with that, so I tend to not label myself that way. However, I am straight and married to a man, and I'm not a homemaker. I have a full-time job, I have a hobby, I'm very much an independent person, and my husband knows that. Like, I don't know what to say. We have an equal partnership. We're teammates. There are certain things that we fall more into gender roles on. I would say that I tend to do more of the cooking, sometimes more of the internal cleaning. We try to parse it out between the two of us, but I'm just home more often, so I kind of take up on that. And he does more of the, like, oh, if your car needs service, I'll call, I'll take it over, stuff like that. When we plan vacations, we're both super laid back, but I'm like, can you do it? Can you like find the hotel? Can you find the flights? I let him take the lead because as long as I know where we're going and it's a place I want to go, I'm good with it. So I would say that the way that I live is feminist, but I don't like to label myself that. Am I weird in that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you feel the same way? Please let me know.
I've been thinking a lot about feminism lately, and it really started when I watched a Christina Hoff Sommers interview, which led me down a rabbit hole
I don't know who that is.
as I started watching a bunch of her videos and then watching videos from other women who know a lot about this topic. And it was fascinating to hear what Christina Hoff Sommers had to say. Now, if you don't know who Christina Hoff Sommers is, she works with the American Enterprise Institute, and she actually has a YouTube series called The Factual Feminist. Now, a lot of people on the internet also call her Based Mom. So Christina Hoff Sommers, her thing is speaking out about the problems with modern feminism. Now, she is not conservative. She is
Okay.
a Democrat, and she and I disagree on some things.
Oh,
but on the
God.
topic of feminism, we do not disagree. And
Oh, cool.
it was
Okay.
fascinating to hear her take on things, because all of a sudden I felt like
I like that. I like when you can acknowledge that somebody has different views than you in certain areas, but you can find a common ground. I think in past years, like the past 4 years, things have definitely been more either you're with us or you're against us, and there's been a lot of resistance to being willing to see other people's points of view, because a lot of times other people's points of view have been incredibly harmful and damaging to people. And so I understand that, but I would like to get to a point, and I hope that we're on that track now, where some of the people who are more on the outskirts, on the fringes of extreme beliefs, are not as loud and they're not as prevalent, and they feel less confident in their horrible beliefs and activity, that we can all kind of push them aside and be like, look, at the majority of us are pretty reasonable people, and I think that we can kind of maybe get some more common ground. I hope. I think we have to be willing to collaborate with people in order to create positive change. So, in any case, cool that you see that she has different political beliefs than you, but you do agree on feminism. Love it.
like, oh my goodness, everything I've been feeling actually has a reason. Now, one of the things that Summers talks about is the fact that despite feminism saying that women are so strong, women are stronger than men, they also have women feeling like fragile flowers, and they think that women are victims. And the example that Summers brings up very often in interviews is that when she
Where
went to
is this from?
Oberlin to give a speech, they set up a safe space so that women who felt overwhelmed by her speaking on this topic could go there and feel like they weren't being attacked. And this is a depressing thing to me, in that women are not weak. Women are strong. Women are so powerful, and it makes me crazy.
I'm just kind of confused. Was this like a particularly emotional or divisive talk that she was giving? Why did they feel a safe space was necessary? Was it beneficial to people to have that safe space? I don't know. I would just like to know more, but she's probably not going to give us any more.
To think about how often the left plays into this victim narrative. Feminists play into this victim narrative that women are victims of society, of the patriarchy, when we have so much power.
We are.
This was the reason I made a video about a year ago about Taylor Swift's song, The Man, her music video on The Man, which, again, plays into all of these stereotypes that women are weak and that men can do whatever they want, and that women are weak because society has made them that way. No, women are very strong. And I'm really excited to talk about this today because it's a really important idea, and I think it gives women an opportunity to feel more fulfilled and feel happier than constantly feeling like a victim, which will only make you despondent. So I'm really excited to get into today's video. I hope you are too.
I'm kind of confused because if we look at it from the outside, in America, there is a bit of an imbalance in how men are treated and how women are treated. And of course, race does play a radical role in that. But say you were to compare a white man to a white woman, I can tell you there are marked differences in the way my husband is treated in certain social situations compared to the way that I am treated. And so I don't think acknowledging that puts you into a victim mentality, but I think it makes you aware of the fact that there's a difference here. There's something that's not quite equal. What can I do in order to correct that for myself, and how can I help correct it for others? If you want a clear-cut example from my personal life, I'm happy to give you one. My husband and I have been going to the same dentist since 2017. Initially, when we first started going there, my husband required a lot of work. In the past, he had a very bad experience with a dentist where they pulled a wisdom tooth while he was awake and without an adequate amount of numbing. I don't even know if there's an adequate amount of numbing that they can give you, or Novocaine that they can give you to pull a wisdom tooth while you are awake. I can't imagine. But he got a wisdom tooth pulled while he was awake, and he felt it. And so ever since he had that experience, he did not want to go back to a dentist. He resisted it. He was not going to do it. But it finally got to a point where he broke a tooth, and it just got so bad that he had to go in and say, okay, let's get this taken care of. Ended up that there was a ton of other stuff that they wanted to fix within his mouth. And he came home and said, here's what they said I need. It's going to cost about $10,000. How do we make this work? And at the time, when we had first gotten married, this is like way more information than you probably need, but at the time when we first got married, we did not combine our bank accounts. I think it took us 2 or 3 years to actually go ahead and do that. But at the time I was like, okay, well, I can get a credit card that's interest free. We can put it on there and then I'll pay it off, because we are very comfortable financially now. But when we first got married, things were definitely tight. He was the only one working. I was still in college. It was just, you're young, freshly married, not super established. You don't have a ton of extra money. But I said, I will get a credit card. It will be interest free. We will pay it off. Like, we'll take care of it. We'll get it done. And so I got the credit card. I paid for that. And I don't ever hold that against my husband because we take care of each other. But that was all on me. And from 2017, anytime I need something, because I have a lot of dental problems, like I have at least one cavity every year. It just is what it is. But every time I needed something that was going to cost more than $100, my dentist would ask me, well, ask your husband if it's okay if we do that. Ask your husband if it's okay if we put that crown in. Ask him if it's okay if we do this. Ask him if it's okay if we fill this cavity. What do I need to ask him for? I'll make the decision. And for a while, I would just be like, okay, yeah, I'll talk to him. And then about a year and a half ago, I don't know if y'all remember when I got this back tooth pulled forever ago, the reason I had to get it pulled was because they had initially done a root canal. Ended up that the root canal was not what needed to happen. My root was pulling away from my bone, and so we were talking about how to fix it, what kind of approaches we could take. There were a few different treatment plans, and I had just asked, like, well, what is the best treatment plan? What would you recommend? And he said the option that I would recommend is to pull it, get an implant, and then put a crown. And so I was like, okay. And he looks at me and he says, So that's what I would do, but go home, talk to your husband, ask what he wants to do, and then let us know. And I just said, I don't need to go home and ask my husband what he thinks I should do. I'm capable of making my own decisions about my own oral health, and I would like to follow that treatment option because you've recommended it and you said that it would be the best one for me, so that's what we're gonna do. And he was just kind of shocked, like, oh, well, I mean, okay, yeah, if that's the decision you want to make, if that's what you want to do, we can go ahead and do that. But it's like he didn't know how to respond when I said, I don't need to ask my husband. I'm going to do whatever is best for me. Why are you telling me to go home and ask my husband? And I told him about this. I was like, man, it really bugs me. And today I finally said something. And he was like, good, you should. Like, he has no idea how we pay for this stuff. He has no idea that you paid for all that work back in 2017. I don't know why he's telling you to ask me anyway. And I'm like, because he's a misogynist. But additionally, every time I came in for a cleaning or anything for me, he would ask, oh, how's Richard doing? How's he doing? Is he good? Is he flossing? I'm like, I don't know. Am I his keeper? Ask him. Like, why are you asking me? I'm going to get angry. We're also dealing with a pretty big issue that we've had with them that we're hoping to get resolved. And honestly, I will probably share that full experience because it is a whole scam, and y'all know how I feel about scams. So once we get that resolved, I'll tell the dentist story time. No, it is a very serious thing that if you are an adult who pays for your own insurance and your own medical bills, you need to know about. So we'll get to that when we get to it. But there is a difference. Like, there is a clear difference in the way that men and women are treated in many different situations. And you are not falling into a victim mentality if you acknowledge that. Because I know that my dentist treated me differently because I was a woman. Guess what? I'm not going to let him do it anymore. I feel like very often we don't want to upset anybody. We don't want to cause a problem. We don't want to ruffle feathers. It's like, okay, whatever. We'll suck it up and deal with it. But then, if we do that, guess what persists? The problem. So you can acknowledge that there's a difference in the way that men and women are treated. You can say, I don't like this. I acknowledge that this is happening, and I'm going to do what I can to stop it. That does not make you a victim. What a rant. Okay, let's get back into what she's saying.
Let's get into it. So let's talk about feminism briefly. Feminism is a very good example of the term semantic overload. If you don't know, semantic overload means when a term acquires multiple meanings and is used in a purposefully vague way, so you're not sure which meaning is being used at what time. The left is great at using words and phrases like this, and they put people on the spot by using them. But feminists...
So you're gonna roast the left when you're talking about how you admire a Democrat. Okay. Also, wouldn't that be connotative overload instead of semantic overload? I don't know. I'm not a linguist. Irrelevant.
Feminism is a great example of this. Feminism had 3 waves. Some people think there's a 4th wave now, and each wave was defined by different things. Now, the first wave was a good wave. The first wave of feminism was about getting legal equity for women. So very famously, we got voting rights in the first wave of feminism. But the second wave of feminism and the third wave of feminism started changing what feminism meant. It wasn't about being made equal to men anymore and getting equal rights. It was about a lot of different things. And a lot of them are paradoxical to each other. So we think about the idea that feminism, it means sex positivity, that we shouldn't slut shame people. But then we also have the idea that it's sex negativity, that engaging in sex with men is actually a bad thing because we're allowing men to take advantage of us and use their oppressive nature in a sexual manner. It can mean equality.
Time for fact checking with B. Now, this isn't something I know a ton about. I knew that there were considered to have 3 waves of feminism, but expert, not by a long shot. Let's Google it, though. Okay, this article is from Vox, and it says, The Waves of Feminism and Why People Keep Fighting Over Them, Explained. If you have no idea which wave of feminism we're in right now, read this. I will. So I'll link this article down below, but it just kind of gives like a preface, and then an explanation of when people started considering different waves of feminism. First wave, 1848 to 1920. People have been suggesting things along the line of, are women maybe human beings? For all of history, so first wave feminism doesn't refer to the first feminist thinkers in history. It refers to the West's first sustained political movement dedicated to achieving political equality for women, the suffragettes of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. For 70 years, the first wavers would 70 years would march, lecture, and protest and faced arrest, ridicule, and violence as they fought tooth and nail for the right to vote. As Susan B. Anthony's biographer, Ida Husted Harper, would put it, suffrage was the right that, once a woman had won it, would secure to her all others. So it's like, okay, once we get the right to vote, we're going to get all of the other rights that we are entitled to. It begins with the Seneca Falls Convention of 1848. There, almost 200 women met in a church in upstate New York to discuss the social, civil, and religious condition and rights of women. They discussed grievances and passed a list of 12 resolutions. Okay, here's an interesting tidbit. The whole thing was organized by Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who are both active abolitionists, and they met when they were both barred from the floor of the 1840 World Anti-Slavery Convention in London because no women were allowed. Oh, this is kind of gross. It talks about the 15th Amendment's passage in 1870 and says, getting black men the right to vote became a spur that politicized white women and turned them into suffragettes. Were they truly not going to be granted the vote before former slaves were? If educated women are not as fit to decide who shall be the rulers of this country as field hands, then where's the use of culture or any brain at all, demanded one white woman, the first Karen, guys, the first Karen in history, as reported by Vox, who wrote into Stanton and Anthony's newspaper, The Revolution. One might as well have been born on the plantation. Black women were barred from some demonstrations or forced to walk behind white women in others. Whenever people talk about, like, oh, the state of the world, things have gotten so bad, how did we get here? People have always been terrible. I mean, let's be real. You look at any civilization in history, there are things you're going to find that are awful. Hot take. Everyone deserves equal rights. Despite its racism, the women's movement developed radical goals for its members. First wavers fought not only for white women's suffrage, but also for equal opportunities to education and employment and for the right to own property. In 1920, Congress passed the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote. In theory, it granted the right to women of all races, but in practice, it remained difficult for black women to vote, especially in the South. The 19th Amendment was the grand legislative achievement of the first wave, although individual groups continued to work for reproductive freedom, for equality in education and employment, for voting rights for black women. The movement as a whole began to splinter. It no longer had a unified goal with strong cultural momentum behind it, and it would not find another until the second wave began to take off in the 1960s. Okay, the second wave from 1963 to the 1980s. This is talking about a written work called The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan. And it says the feminine mystique rails against the problem that has no name, the systemic sexism that taught women that their place was in the home and that if they were unhappy as housewives, it was only because they were broken and perverse. I thought there was something wrong with me because I didn't have an orgasm waxing the kitchen floor, Friedan later quipped. But, she argued, the fault didn't truly lie with women, but rather with the world that refused to allow them to exercise their creative and intellectual faculties. Women were right to be unhappy. They were being ripped off. Okay, so it talks about how they had a unifying goal. They have the catchphrase of the personal is political, and the movement won some major legislative and legal victories. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 theoretically outlawed the gender pay gap, theoretically being the operative word. A series of landmark Supreme Court cases through the 60s and 70s gave married and unmarried women the right to use birth control. What up? Title IX gave women the right to educational equality, and in 1973, Roe v. Wade guaranteed women reproductive freedom. The second wave worked on getting women the right to hold credit cards under their own names and apply for mortgages. It worked to outlaw marital rape, to raise awareness about domestic violence, and build shelters for women fleeing rape and domestic violence. It worked to name and legislate against sexual harassment in the workplace. But perhaps just as central was the second wave's focus on changing the way society thought about women. The second wave cared deeply about the casual, systemic sexism ingrained into society, the belief that women's highest purposes were domestic and decorative, and the social standards that reinforced that belief, and in naming that sexism and ripping it apart. The second wave cared about racism too, but it would be clumsy in working with people of color. As when are y'all gonna learn to listen to Black women? They see things before other people do. They are highly intuitive, maybe not even intuitive, maybe just aware of things that are going on that other people have the privilege of ignoring. I guess if I'm really looking at it, it's that white people have the privilege of being able to ignore a lot of things, and so I think they don't even raise any red flags for us. We don't pay attention because we, again, have the privilege of not having to look out for them. Public service announcement of this video: listen to Black women. Just a thought. As the women's movement developed, it was rooted in the anti-capitalist and anti-racist civil rights movements, but Black women increasingly found themselves alienated from the central platforms of the mainstream women's movement. The feminine mystique and its problem that has no name was specifically for white, middle-class women. Women who had to work to support themselves experienced their oppression very differently from women who were socially discouraged from working. Earning the right to work outside the home was not a major concern for Black women, many of whom had to work outside the home anyway, and while Black women and white women both advocated for reproductive freedom, Black women wanted to fight not just for the right to contraception and abortions, but to also stop the forced sterilization of people of color and people with disabilities, which was not a priority for the mainstream women's movement. In response, some Black feminists decamped from feminism to create womanism. Womanist is to feminism as purple is to lavender, Alice Walker wrote in 1983. So this goes on to talk about how people kind of exaggerated the bra-burning gatherings and how people got together to protest the Miss America pageant in 1968. Okay, so second wave. Some ownership over reproductive health, stopping forced sterilizations of Black women and women of color, as well as people with disabilities. We're giving access to abortions and contraceptives. We don't want to be seen only as decorative. We don't want to be seen only as sex objects. We are complex creatures. I don't know if one day you want to zhuzh yourself up to look a little bit extra special for somebody. There's nothing wrong with that, but also that is not who you are as a person. That is not your identity. Okay, and then it talks about the third wave of feminism from 1991 to how there's not necessarily defined markers of what this movement is trying to achieve, but some common themes are sexual harassment in the workplace and by men who are in positions of power. And I like this tidbit where it says early third wave activism tended to involve fighting against workplace sexual harassment and working to increase the number of women in positions of power. Intellectually, it was rooted in the work of theorists of the 80s, Kimberly Crenshaw, a scholar of gender and critical race theory who coined the term intersectionality to describe the ways in which different forms of oppression intersect, and Judith Butler, who argued that gender and sex are separate and that gender is performative. Crenshaw and Butler's combined influence would become foundational to the third wave's embrace of the fight for trans rights as a fundamental part of intersectional feminism. And then it also talks about how femininity was a bit more present in the beginning of this third wave, how people in the second wave kind of fought against that girliness. They wanted to be seen as powerful women and adults, but then they said that, okay, well, rejecting your femininity, rejecting your girliness is rooted in misogyny, and we should be embracing that. And then it kind of closes out with saying, depending on how you count the waves, that might be changing now as the Me Too movement develops with no signs of stopping, or we might be kicking off an entirely new wave. And then it kind of goes into the present day fourth wave. We're going to stop with that now and get back to Abby because I've been talking for a long time and we're only 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the video. But I would like to go back to her point that she was just talking about, how the second wave is paradoxical and it's about not sleeping with people, but also sleeping with whoever you want. Seems a little simplistic, Abby.
Equality in the workplace. It can also mean that women must have equality in the workplace, despite the fact that many women do not want to get to the heights of their careers and actually choose to leave high-powered jobs in order to stay at home and have families. That is a choice many women make, and feminism doesn't care that that is the case. They'll still say that women are not making the same amount of men, that they're making 78 cents on the dollar or whatever figure is in play today. Being feminist can mean being pro-choice, and that if you're pro-life, you have internalized misogyny. It can mean that you believe that there's an inherent...
Who is carrying the babies? Women. Who gets penalized for taking time off to be with their children? Women. Who is expected to do that? Women. I cannot tell you how many people asked me the question, so what are you going to do about your job? When I told them that we were getting physical custody of 2 kiddos in my family. Do you know how many people asked my husband? Just something to think about.
Victimization of women by society and the patriarchy. Now, the issue is this. When someone asks me, are you a feminist? What am I going to say? I say, of course, I believe in equality for men and women, but I don't believe in all the rest of this stuff, whatever else it means. What does a woman even mean to you? What do rights mean to you? This is why feminism is a dangerous concept, because it is not just about equal legal rights. It is not just about being equal in society. It's about a bunch of other things hidden under the guise of the title feminism. And what this made me realize is that feminists don't understand what the real strength of women is.
Sorry, I had a slight interruption.
They don't understand the strengths that are unique to us as a sex and what is so exciting and powerful about being a woman. And the reason I was thinking about this was because I watched the movie Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. This is a musical that came out in 1954, and it's about a man named Adam Pont.
This might be kind of irrelevant, and you might be getting a little frustrated that I keep pausing and talking, and we've only gotten through 6 minutes of this video at this point in my video. But I do think that while it is magical that there are some women who do have the ability to grow life in their wombs, I think that is something so worthy of being celebrated. I don't necessarily think there's only magic in cis women. Like, I don't think that the sex of, like, women's sex is the magic thing. How do I say this without accusing somebody of being transphobic? I think it's kind of dangerous when you put so much focus on the female sex. The fact that somebody was born and assigned female at birth, and they identify with that, and they continue to live as that throughout their entire life. When you look at the magic of women from a sex perspective as opposed to an energetic perspective, you are ignoring science. There is scientific backing to validate transgender people. So let's just acknowledge that and get it out of the way, and get any notion of, well, if you didn't have a vagina when you were born, you're not a woman. Let's just kick that out right now, and let's focus on energetics. And this might not be super scientific, but this is how I prefer to perceive things. There is feminine energy and masculine energy, and we all have both contained within us. And some people have more of a masculine, some people have more of a feminine. I do think that in general, people who identify as male do embrace that masculine energy, and people who identify as female embrace the feminine energy. And that's where the magic is, the feminine energy that absolutely anybody can have. And I think the more that you understand about doing the work to embrace both sides of that within yourself, you can understand and appreciate and honor the strengths of each, because we all have both within us. This is more of my belief system rather than a science-based thing, I suppose. But if you ever think about the concept of a mama's boy or a daddy's girl, I don't think that has anything to do with like the Oedipus complex. I think it's that balance where, in general, men tend to stand within that masculine energy and females stand within the feminine energy. And so if you have a little boy or a little girl, they're drawn to the thing that's going to balance them out. That is just my perspective on things. I don't even remember magic and being female. Yes, energetically. Has nothing to do with the body that you were born in. Just my opinion.
Who in the 1850s is a backwoodsman, and he lives in Oregon, and he comes to town and he's looking to trade some wares as well as to find a wife, and he happens to find one, and her name is Millie. And Millie is actually the main character of the movie. She's been working in a boarding house serving all of these frontiersmen, and when a man comes in and offers to sweep her away to his beautiful cabin in the mountains and to his farm, she takes him up on the offer. She thinks it's beautiful. She'll be part of a sovereign household with her husband.
Okay.
And when he brings her up to the mountains, that is not what she gets. She walks into the cabin and finds that he had not told her.
Yeah, that would be a boring story. I'm sure she's getting somewhere good. I don't know. I don't know why that just rubbed me so wrong. The fact that she was like the magic in being female. What do you even consider female? Wine bee is different than regular bee or truly bee.
About these 6 brothers that he has that live in the cabin with him, none of whom have been raised with a woman's touch. I mean, honestly, that's what it is. They are not civilized, they're all messy, and Millie has to make a choice. She has to make a choice. She could return back to town. She could run away from what she's been faced with.
Deuces.
And instead she pushes up her sleeves, grabs her Bible, and says, I am going to build up the men around me and make this house a home. And she does. She makes all of the men in the movie better for having been there. She forces them to be the best version of themselves. She makes them eligible bachelors so that they can meet wives. She uses her strengths as a woman to make everyone around her better. And it's a beautiful film for that reason. Now, she doesn't ask the men to be weak. Instead, she encourages them to find the best parts of their masculinity. This is all indicative of what women's strengths are. Watching the movie, you wouldn't...
Women, your strength is in making men better. Congratulations. Like, what? Okay, I think there's something to be said for having a partner or a community around you that encourages you to be the best that you can be, but if that was me, that's not my job. Get yourself together first and then come find me.
Blame Millie for returning to her life in the town. That would make sense. She was kind of blindsided by this scenario. But the way that Millie's character decides to proceed forward is indicative of something greater. Women have a unique strength, and it gives us purpose and it gives us fulfillment. We set the standards for civilizations. Feminism doesn't give women credit for all of the power they already hold. So what are these unique strengths that women have? Well, number one is that women make men better. Modern feminism says that anything
women throughout history and even now have a lot of influence on the people in their lives. However, nobody wants to listen to them on a large scale, and they also do not get credit.
Men can do, women can do better. But the fact of the matter is, women and men are not the same. It's not about trying to compete for women to be better than men at what men are good at. It's about women embracing the things that make us strong already. We don't have to fight the urge.
Like taking care of men and making them better.
To play video games for hours on end or to be ridiculously promiscuous. But men do have those struggles, and it's our responsibility to help them not sink to their level. When feminists convince us that it's not our responsibility to take care of men and to make...
Okay. Again, this is about the words, not the person. Promiscuity is not a uniquely male trait. It's just not. Number two, neither is playing video games for hours. And also, if somebody wants to play video games for hours, male, female, non-binary, okay, do what you like. I mean, why are you worried about what other people are doing, to be completely honest? I just don't get it. There are plenty of women who love to play video games. There are plenty of people who are not male who love to play video games. I am not one of them. I don't have the patience to learn how to get good at a game in order to enjoy playing it. Not my thing. But if somebody else enjoys video games and that's what they want to do to relax, okay. Like, that doesn't impact me.
Civilization's great. They're taking away a fundamental role, loving. Through our love, we make things better. As women, we take care of what we love. We build beauty around ourselves. We make houses into homes. We make communities better. We make men better. We make families stronger. And this happens individually as well as societally. So on an individual level,
Again, I would contribute that to feminine energy, not necessarily a uniquely female sex trait. There are plenty of women who don't necessarily care about interior decorating or design. There are plenty of women who do, but there are also plenty of men who care about that and who turn their houses into a home. This is also vaguely homophobic because you're excluding gay couples, saying that any gay couple, two guys living in a home together, you don't have a home. You just have a house because you don't know how to turn a house into a home. Again, I would attribute this to feminine energy. Additionally, if we want to get religious about it, there are plenty of ancient religious texts that refer to God as being feminine energy. I think we kind of tend to lean towards the Western way that people perceive God and say, well, God sent his one and only son, Jesus, and so we think about God as a man, but God doesn't have genitals. God doesn't have chromosomes. God doesn't have an earthly body. God's not a man. When you boil it down, God is energy. God is omnipresent, omnipotent energy. And God contains both female and male because we are created and molded after him. If you're religious, don't take this as me saying that you have to believe this, but if you're coming from a religious standpoint, we all have a bit of God within us. The more I think about this, the more convicted I become in my approach, to where I'm like, I don't care if you were assigned female, assigned male at birth. That doesn't have any impact on what your purpose is. Like I said, if you're religious and you believe that people were molded in the image of God, and we don't just have male, we don't just have female, we have people of all kinds, that means everyone was molded after God. That doesn't just mean that, oh, men, y'all are the only ones, you're molded in the closest likeness to him. No, that means that everybody has the same energy that he is made of within us. So you can't just say that only women who were assigned women or assigned female at birth have this capability and these strengths. I was kind of hoping that by the way this video started, where she said that she, a conservative, and a Democrat, the leader, the speaker that she was talking about, had these things in common and they agreed. I was hoping that maybe I wouldn't find so much issue in what she was saying. I'm like, hey, if they can agree, this can't be that bad.
If a woman raises her son to be good and upstanding and have good values and morals, guess what? He will be a good, upstanding man.
Guess what? If a man raises his son to be good and upstanding and have morals, he will be a good, upstanding, moral man. See how that works? Let's just get through the video.
If a woman tells a man that is interested in her, I won't date you unless you get your act together, guess what? He might get his act together. On a societal level, the quality of our men...
Maybe, but do you want to be with somebody who is pretending to be something else or required the motivation of a person that he was romantically interested in to get his life together? It's one of those things where it's like, you can't change somebody. They are who they are, and they're going to grow and evolve over time, but like nothing you say is going to change their identity. They have to do that for themselves. I would rather meet somebody who has, I'm married, so it's irrelevant, but in my experience when I met my husband, he was his own complete person who had his own hobbies, his own interests, his own friends, his own belief system, his own motivation. And that's what drew me to him, not the fact that he was somebody that I needed to tell to get their act together.
Is responsive to the quality of our women and what we demand of men. So think about the women's liberation movement. It encouraged women to have sex as thoughtlessly and mindlessly as men did, that we shouldn't tie love and sex together, that they are separate, and so if you have an urge, just go ahead and follow it. Before that started, men were forced to wait until marriage to have sex. If they wanted to have sex before marriage, they would have to go to less reputable places, and that's the point. They had to go out of their way to seek it. It could have physical ramifications or social ramifications. They couldn't just go to a bar or swipe right on an app and have a one-night stand. Women weren't left in
Nope. You're saying that men in the past had no choice. They just had to wait until they got married or go to a less reputable place. I'm assuming she means like a brothel or a bathhouse. You're right, Abby. Before women took ownership of their sexuality, which has happened countless times and in countless cultures throughout history from the beginning of time up until now, no men were having sex unless they were married. You're right. If you could not tell, that was sarcasm.
The situations they are today, where they have a one-night stand with someone and maybe emotionally get attached, or where they date someone for a long time. Once feminism decided that sexual fulfillment was the most important thing, regardless of family, regardless of relationships,
when was that decided?
Regardless of commitment,
when was that the priority?
That was the most important thing for your happiness. The rules changed. Men could now sleep with women and leave. Men could have sex with women, and there was no commitment, no strings attached. A woman could get pregnant and not have a man to help her. And women were left to either blame themselves for not kind of fitting in with this new narrative that sex and love weren't related, or they were blaming society for making them feel.
I've been recording for over an hour and a half at this point, and I know there's a lot that I'm going to have to cut out. So I don't know at what point in the video we're getting to this, but I truly don't even have time to go into how wrong I believe this to be. I just want to make it known that I disagree with this point entirely, 100%.
Feel bad. When in fact, the biggest issue is that sex and love do work together and in tandem, and that commitment is important when you're having sex. Women found they didn't get the happiness and fulfillment that feminists had promised to them. Women are the backbone of good civilizations, and we have so much power to influence the future.
It's our job to be the pillars of moral superiority. I can't. Oh my God, she's like worse than my dentist.
We raise children. We make men.
So do men. And so do people who are intersex.
Men better. We make things run smoothly in our communities and our homes. And we make other women better because men can't call out toxic behavior among women. Only women can do that. This isn't to say that women's only role is in the home. But what it is to say is that we are uniquely capable of making civilizations grow and be strong. And it is useful to recognize the power we have in that.
Okay, I'm going to make this my resolution to be the last time I pause before she gets to the end of the video. But this is just ridiculous. This is putting the onus on women to be the ones in the moral right, to take on the responsibility of keeping other people accountable. We have to take on this extra work. We can't expect other people to acknowledge their behaviors and take accountability for who they are and the kind of people they are. It's our job. This reminds me of a podcast episode I was listening to from the podcast Someplace Underneath, and they were talking about Ghislaine Maxwell. And they were like, it's messed up to say this, but it's so much more disappointing when you find out that a woman is a predator or engaging in predatory behavior because we hold them to a higher standard. Like, it feels misogynistic, but that's how we feel, that it is disappointing to hear that because we think of women as being better. And I don't want to be like anti-woman, but we should be holding men to these same standards. we shouldn't be putting women on the pedestal of the moral high ground, whereas men have all the power. It should be, we expect everybody to be good people. We expect everyone not to hurt kids, not to take advantage of young children. We should be expecting the same things from everyone. Be a decent person and take accountability for yourself. Don't rely, if you are a man, why are you relying on a woman to make you better? It's so unfair to tell women that they are responsible for making everyone else around them better without giving them their due place in society. It should be on people, just people in general, to encourage people, to lift them up, to help them if they want to become better versions of themselves, and to leave them alone if they don't, unless they're hurting somebody. You know what I mean?
We have a unique role in building and maintaining society. The fact that men need women doesn't need to make us aggrieved. The fact that children grow and thrive and become their best selves shouldn't make us tired. The fact that societies need women should not make us resentful. These are the kinds of things that bring women power and purpose. It is inspiring to me to think about how much power we as women have and how we can affect.
Just last thing. Did you know that studies show that if the father or the male figure in the household actively participates in religion, children are a significant percentage, I don't know the exact percentage off the top of my head, I'll try and find the study and link it down below, the children in the household are significantly more likely to stay with that religion as they get older if the man of the house, if the masculine energy in the home actively participates in that religion. Hey men, hey everybody, let's take responsibility for raising kids and creating positive changes in society.
Change. To me, it honestly blows my mind to think that women think that they are powerless when we have so much power, when we can control.
We're not powerless, but we're saying, hey, there's a clear difference here in the way men and women are treated, and that's not even taking into account the racial biases that also need to be corrected. Women are not weak. I don't think the majority of women are saying, we're so weak, we need help, but we want to be treated equally, but also we're weak, take care of us. No, it's understanding that there is a systemic difference in the way that men and women are both perceived and treated, and wanting to correct it, and acknowledging that there is that imbalance is not making yourself a victim. I think I've said that like 10 times. I'm gonna keep saying it.
The outcomes of societies, when we can control the outcomes of literal civilizations, and we just need to stand up and
not get any credit for it.
So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, make sure to do so, and make sure to hit that notification bell. If you'd like to get access to exclusive content not available anywhere else, make sure to subscribe.
Whatever, it's over. Terrible, transphobic, homophobic, heteronormative, victim blaming, victim shaming. What other words can I use to describe this? Abby, this was bad. This was real bad. I think that people who espouse a lot of the views that she has in this video are also the kinds of people who would advocate against gay adoption because, you know, sons need moms and daughters need dads. And I do think that there is a special bond that we do often see between daughters and their dads and sons and their moms, but that's not the only way to raise a healthy, happy child, by having a mom and dad in the home. I mean, if we're doing that, we might as well blame single dads because they don't have a woman around. They don't have a woman to turn the house into a home. You're not good enough to do this, Dad. I'm very mad. Let me know your thoughts on this. Are you fired up? Are you mad? Is it the wine that's making me feel this way? Am I going to watch this back and be like, oh, what she said wasn't that bad. You just got worked up for no reason. Probably not, but who knows? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. While you're doing that, if you would consider liking this video or subscribing to my channel, that would be incredible. And if you have subscribed already, thank you so much. I am so appreciative of you, and I love being able to just sit here, hang out with you, and talk about whatever. With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Please be kind to people, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.